Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Radar. This is a series where the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder highlights Minnesota creatives. Today, we have an actress, author, public speaker, spoken word artist, and educator, Michelle Perdue. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yes, and you have so much that I had to list after your name. That is so wonderful. Um, So, just for us to start and get to know you, I know you earned your master's degree in education from the University of Minnesota and served in the Army Reserves. Um, can you tell us about your background as an educator and um, your time with the Army Reserves and
Yeah,
how it influenced, your life today as a creative?
absolutely. My background is very interesting because, as you just mentioned, I've done um, a variety of things, in my life. And I'm one of those kind of people who believe that if there's something that is on your heart to do, go for it, whatever that may be. And so I like to think of myself as being really open minded. So yes, I received my master's degree in education from the University of Minnesota, and I'm also a veteran of the Army Reserves. Once I received my master's degree in education from the U, I moved to California to pursue a career in acting, and that's where I attended the Ruskin School of Acting.
hmm And how's your background as an educator and in the Army? Do you use any of the things that you learned from those experiences now in your life as an actress or a spoken word artist?
Yes, I think that my military background has given me the discipline to do the work that I do, discipline and structure, which is very important because I do a variety of things. And one day I can be speaking um, to employees at a corporation, and the next day I could be teaching youth how to write and perform spoken word poetry. And
Mhm.
so it's allowing myself to get focused and to get in the right mindset so that I can show up as the best version of who I am.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my military background for sure has given me structure and discipline. My master's degree in education, in terms of working with youth, has allowed me to help youth to really step into the best version of who they are and to show them how powerful their voice is.
Mhm.
I think so often when you're young and you're growing up, you don't realize how powerful your voice is because no one really tells you, or no one really gives you that safe and nurturing platform to really step into your voice. And so then you don't really know how to use it,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's one of the things that I'm really proud of in terms of helping students through spoken word poetry to use their voice to advocate for themselves
Mhm.
in so many ways.
Yeah. Speaking of, the youth, was that your experience as a kid? Did you know that you wanted to use your voice or use your creative side?
Yes, it's really interesting because as I was growing up, I really didn't know that I had a voice because I came from a very dysfunctional background, home life in so many ways, where I was exposed to domestic violence on, various occasions. And so I never really remembered someone or anyone instilling in me that I did have a voice. I
Mhm.
always felt at times invisible. But at the same time, I did know that there was a creative side to myself, and I didn't know what that was or what that looked like. I knew that I wanted to perform, whether it was on TV or on the stage. I knew that there was a theatrical voice inside of me. And then it wasn't until I graduated from the University of Minnesota that I wanted to be very intentional about what that would look like for me.
Mhm.
And so I've had an opportunity to do a variety of things in terms of showcasing my theatrical abilities.
So you went to LA to
Yeah.
pursue your acting. What did that experience do for you in your career? Why was it important that you left Minnesota and went to LA for this experience?
Yeah, I just at that time I was had a very adventurous spirit. I wanted to do something different, and I knew that LA would be a vehicle to potentially um, get me to where I wanted to be.
Mhm,
And I'm so glad that I did because I really learned a lot. When I went to LA, I had no idea that how important it was to like get an agent. I had no idea what that was or what
mhm,
that meant. And after being out there for quite some time, I realized, oh, in order to get ahead, I saw the value and the importance of getting an agent,
mhm,
which I did, and I was able to do some work out in LA as well as become a member of the Screen Actors Guild.
mhm,
Um, I also wrote and produced a one-woman show in LA that dealt with domestic violence, which is a very tough topic to write about, but I'm so glad that I did because it allowed me to, find my voice and really get in touch with some of the pain that I think had been buried, and I was able to uncover a lot of that through my poetry.
mhm,
My poetry has definitely given me a vehicle to tap into, my pain, but also my creativity.
mhm.
And once I discovered it, I kind of ran with it and
Yeah.
have created other shows since then.
Mhm. So you went to LA to, hone in on the technical and the soft skills of acting, but would you say that's where you found spoken word?
It
Or
was absolutely.
Mhm,
I remember auditioning for the vagina monologues
mhm,
in LA. And the vagina monologues are created by Eve Ensler. And I remember thinking before I went to the audition, I was thinking to myself, well, you know what? I feel as if I can write, my own monologue, in addition to telling other women's stories. And so I remember sitting on my living room floor waiting for some furniture to be delivered. And as I was beginning to write a monologue, for some reason, my thoughts were coming out in the form of poetry.
mhm,
And I thought to myself, well, this is interesting. And so rather than, shy away from it and push it away, I decided to embrace it.
mhm.
And it was then I realized, wow, I like this.
Yeah.
I want to do more of it. And so
Mhm,
that's exactly what I did. And that's what led me to write and produce my one woman show in West Hollywood.
mhm.
Yeah.
What's the name of the one-woman show?
Yes, the name of the one woman show was called Shula Bula,
Mhm,
which is my nickname that
mhm,
my grandfather had given me when I was a small child.
mhm.
And so I named it in honor of him.
Wow.
And as I mentioned before, it dealt with, domestic violence. And I had an opportunity to play many characters, including
Mhm,
my grandfather, my mother, my grandmother. Um, and it was a beautiful thing. I had some of my family to come out to LA and to see it. And they had an opportunity to learn things about me that they had never heard before,
mhm.
through my art.
Right. I saw in a previous interview that you said one of your inspirations was your grandmother. And you
Yes.
said she wasn't necessarily an artist, but she moved through life
Yeah,
in an artful way.
she did.
Can you expound on that? What does that mean?
Yeah, my grandmother was an amazing woman. She raised 9 children. And she was a big part of my life in terms of raising me because my mother was like, so young when she had me. And she was just so instrumental in my life. And because I lived with her for a big part of my life, I just remember all the hardships and the struggles that she would go through and being exposed to, just verbal abuse in the home. And, but yet she worked so hard at a local hospital. And I knew that she was in pain. because oftentimes she would sing these gospel hymns, and depending on what kind of song she would sing, I knew what type of mood she was in. So if she sang, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, I knew her heart was heavy that day,
Right.
right? But then if she sung, children go where I send thee, how should I send thee? Then I knew that it was going to be a good day.
Mhm.
So just watching my grandmother in motion and just how she lived her life was a true art form. And although I never really shared a lot of my feelings with her, just watching her, I learned so much.
Mhm.
So, yes, my grandmother was very instrumental in my view and my perception of art, even though she never performed herself.
Right. It sounds like that's just like an example of art as, expression, you know? She didn't have to tell you exactly how she was feeling, but you knew from the songs she sang. I love that.
Absolutely.
Um, Wanting to go back to, your trajectory,
Hmm.
what made you come back to Minnesota after you were in LA, and it sounded like you had a good experience there?
Yeah, I did have a good experience there. I was in LA with my husband, and I had got pregnant with my son. And at the time, my husband and I, we didn't have any family in California. And my husband is from Minnesota.
Mhm.
And so we decided that we wanted to move back to Minnesota where there was some family.
Right.
And I have no regrets, whatsoever.
Yeah.
But having my son was really the catalyst for us coming back to Minnesota.
Mhm.
And but it didn't stop me in terms of being creative with my work. Once I came back to Minnesota, I applied for a Minnesota State Arts grant where I wrote another show called The Housekeeper's Dirt.
Mm.
This was a two-person show that dealt with domestic violence. And I just wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be able to share my story as it related to domestic violence in hopes that it would inspire other women who may be in that situation to see that there are great things. There's other possibilities on the other side of that struggle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whilst you were doing that work, how has Minnesota shaped your artistry in any way, creatively or
Yeah.
politically, or the topics you choose?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I knew that at some point that I would want to write another show to inspire women who were impacted by breast cancer. And I applied for another grant. Unfortunately, last year I wrote and produced another one woman show titled Thrive,
Mhm.
which was performed at the Hive Collaborative in St. Paul. It was a show that it's made up of three one-act plays. I play about a total of maybe 18 or 19 different characters.
Mm.
And fortunately, I was blessed to submit my show to the Los Angeles Women's Theater Festival,
Mhm.
and it was accepted.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to going to LA in March and performing my one woman show.
Mhm. Wow, that's amazing. What can you say to people who may want to do something similar to you, as in create art that reflects what they've been through and the hardships?
Mhm.
I think sometimes it's just more difficult to produce that art when it's so heavy.
Yeah.
So when it's something like domestic abuse or cancer, um, how do you get through that creative process?
Yeah. Well, I would encourage anyone to find a creative outlet in terms of dealing with your hardships, in terms of cultivating and building resilience. For me, spoken word poetry has been everything. It allows me to go to a place where I don't think I would go to otherwise in terms of um, just connecting with my thoughts and my heart. Um, because sometimes our heart is heavy and there's not always somebody there in your life that you can share your journey or your story or your hardships with. And I think when you allow yourself to be creative, it's a gift that you give to yourself. And and it's whatever that looks like for you. For me, it's spoken word poetry. But maybe for someone else, it's, I don't know, writing songs or painting or whatever it may be. And that's the beauty of art is that you get to create art based on your terms and based on what it looks like
Mm,
for you. And I personally have found that it's therapeutic, it's healing, it's nurturing, and I can't see myself not doing it.
mhm. How is it being a creative Black woman in Minnesota? Do you see the local arts community supporting or failing Black artists? Or is there a community around that?
Oh, there's absolutely a community. There's more of a community than I even realized. This year I started working for an organization called Compass, where I'm a teaching artist, and
Mhm,
I have an opportunity to go into the school system and work with youth. Um, but being part of Compass, I'm realizing how many artists there are here in the Twin Cities, especially artists of color. And it is so inspiring. It just reinforces how gifted and talented people are, especially in the Black community. Um, so it's just a beautiful thing to see.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's yes. So to answer your question, it's rich
Mhm,
in the Black community with people who are just talented with their
yeah,
gifts.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad that's something you noticed and that you can see and say because, sometimes when you're growing up somewhere, you can see like, oh, I need to go somewhere else to pursue this, or, this isn't the space for that, or, people don't think there's Black people in Minnesota. So, for
Yeah.
you to say that, I feel like there's probably some reassurance there for younger artists.
Yeah. That's a really good question because I think the older I get, the more I realize that no matter where you are, what state, what country, at the end of the day, you have the power to determine how you show up in the world. And so, years ago, I thought, LA was the place. And,
Mhm,
today, maybe not so much in
mhm,
the in terms of the arts. There's Atlanta, there's, New York and, many other places. But I'm a firm believer that whatever it is that you want to do, it's not about necessarily you having to be in a certain location. I believe that if it's something that is on your heart to do, and if you want it bad enough, you will create that opportunity for yourself. And
mhm,
because of that, you will attract the right people
mhm,
into your life.
mhm. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it is what you make it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. To an extent. I mean, don't
Okay.
get me wrong, I don't underestimate the opportunities in LA
Mhm.
that are
Right.
not here. I mean, there
Mhm.
is something to say for that.
Mhm.
But what I am saying and what I am reinforcing is the idea of not forgetting the kind of power, the innate power that you have to create the life that you want to have.
Yeah. Um, so many of us have multiple passions
Hmm.
as you do, and it can sometimes feel extremely difficult pouring into different avenues
Yeah.
at one time. So how does this look for you with acting, spoken word, and public speaking? And, juggling those things or combining them if that's what you do.
Yeah. What I'm realizing now that it's 2026, I decided to start off the year by being very intentional about
Mhm.
how I show up because I do a variety of things. I enjoy um, being a keynote speaker. I enjoy spoken word poetry and acting, whether it's on, TV commercials or for the stage. And on a very fundamental level, what I do know about myself is that at the end of the day, I am an artist. So when I'm speaking on stage, whether I'm speaking to who have I spoken to? Land O'Lakes or General Mills, Ramsey County. I always make sure to incorporate my theatrical abilities in my presentations
Mm,
because that's who I am.
right.
And I don't keep them separate anymore. I make it very I'm very intentional about bringing those worlds or those different dynamics of my personality into my work.
Hmm. And can you tell me about what your day to day looks like? In your roles and in in the disciplines that you're in.
Yeah, my day to day. My day are very full. They really are, in the sense that, as I mentioned, I'm a keynote speaker. So oftentimes I'm, working on my keynote presentations. I speak on the topic of resilience, and I'm always trying to make them better. um, Whether it's the content or how I show up on stage with my stage presence. And I think that's where my acting has really helped me in terms of speaking and making
Mhm.
sure I'm connecting and being very engaging with my audience. I think my acting background and my training has helped me um, to be engaging, with my audience. But in terms of my day, it's working on my keynote presentations. I'm always working on new spoken word poems, especially now that I'm a teaching artist for Compass and I'm going into the school systems. Um, what else? Writing, working on my one woman show. As I mentioned in March, I'm going to LA to perform Thrive for the Los Angeles Women's Theater Festival. And so at this point in time, I'm in rehearsals for that. And so every day it's,
So how does rehearsal look for a one woman show? As far as are you just keeping yourself accountable and, setting that time limit and saying like, okay, I'm gonna start rehearsal right now, and it's just you in the room doing that, or do you have people um to rehearse with you or
yeah.
to set those kind of um that scheduling and that pace?
Well, when I was in rehearsal last year for the show to perform at the Hype Collaborative, I worked with a director here in the Twin Cities. Her name is Mary Harris, who is just an amazing woman. And so, because I had a director, there was some accountability there
Mhm.
in terms of when we would rehearse. But now it's, I'm rehearsing on my own at this point in time. And there is discipline that's involved. And it's not easy because there's no one to say, okay, Michelle,
Right.
it's time to go and set this aside or
Mhm.
whatever. And work on your one woman show.
Mhm.
So I have to once again be very intentional about my schedule and how much time I'm spending on other things. I'm also a mom. I have two teenagers,
Mhm.
and I'm a wife. And life gets busy. Life happens to everybody, right? Life keeps lifing, they
Mhm.
say. And so yeah, it can be challenging.
Yeah. What are some not just right now, but what are some challenges that you've faced overall? Um, Whether it's getting into the creative fields or being in those fields, and whether that is challenges as a Black woman or
Yeah.
just challenges in Minnesota or any challenges.
Yeah. That's a good question. And I really appreciate that because I'm gonna be very transparent because I think being transparent is um is what helps other people right? Because so often we can get so caught up in telling the good side
Right.
of our stories that we don't allow ourselves to be grounded in the truth and just be honest with things,
Mhm.
and I think that's a disservice that we do to ourselves when we don't acknowledge our pain and our past, and we think that we can just continue on with life as if nothing had happened, right? And we want to keep showing up for the world where we're smiling and giving the world what we think that they want to see
Mhm.
instead of being the person we ought to be. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Right? And so I've struggled at times showing up, for myself and for my work, um, because I didn't necessarily heal from some of those wounds. But I'm really proud to say that today is a new day, and I've been very intentional about getting the support that I need to show up as the best version of who I am so that I can be of better service to other people.
Mhm. And so when facing these challenges or trying to, not just move on from it so you can, sit with it and heal from it,
Mhm.
how do you do that work while balancing, your work?
Yeah. You know, you do it however it works for you.
Mhm.
And for me, it's about getting support,
Yeah.
professional help, whether it's speaking with a therapist.
Mhm.
So often, especially in our community, we don't talk about going outside of ourselves or our family to get the support that we need because
Mhm.
there's this stigma that's attached to um, getting mental health.
Mhm.
Getting support for your mental health,
Mhm.
right? Um, But I wanted to be a role model, for my children. As I mentioned, I have two
Mhm.
teenagers, and I want them to be able to say, "Hey, if things aren't working right, if things aren't feeling right, that's okay." And it's okay for me to seek the support that I need and putting your mental health and your well-being first, making
Mhm.
it a priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some other things that you would tell aspiring actresses, aspiring spoken word artists, aspiring keynote speakers, um, or some of the
Yeah.
things that you tell your students now as an educator?
Yeah. I would say that your voice is meant to be heard, and there's power in it. And then find your tribe that will give you that space and that sense of belonging so that you can use your voice in a way that elevates your humanity, right? Find your tribe um, so that you can be your true, authentic self. I think sometimes we allow ourselves to be around people, places, and things that don't optimize us, that don't make us better as human beings. And because of that, we stay small and we play small. And that impacts our voice,
Mhm.
right? In terms of advocating for our needs, in terms of, whether you're a performer and you want to. Um, Potentially use your voice as a spoken word artist or to act on stage. Um, I would encourage you to do some soul searching, right? And allow yourself to connect with that creative side of yourself and use it in a way that not only elevates your life, but also the lives of others. You'd be surprised at how many people are hungry for what it is that you have to say, right? Or the story that you're holding on so near and dear to you because it's so painful to share. But once you allow yourself to connect with that story and heal from that story, there's somebody on the other side who's waiting to hear what you have to say.
Mhm.
And you'd be surprised how it will change not only your life, but it will also change the trajectory of theirs.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of those technical things that you would like them to know that maybe people just don't think about, or it's something that we don't talk about? Like something you mentioned earlier was having an agent, how important that is. Is there anything like that that you want to share?
As an artist, if you're
Mm-hmm.
pursuing,
Yes.
having an agent is important, but I think that that's not something that I think is a priority that you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you would need to pursue right away.
Mm-hmm.
I would say allow yourself to get grounded and get a sense of who you are and how you want to show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that art form look like, right? Um, because when you know who you are, you don't need the validation of an agent
Mm-hmm.
initially.
Mm-hmm.
When you know who you are, it allows you to show up as the authentic version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is they will be calling you.
Yeah.
It's not about you reaching out to them, they'll be calling you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, first and foremost, get grounded, know who you are, know where you stand, know what your boundaries are, know
Mm-hmm.
what you're willing to say yes and no to.
Yeah.
Um, I think that that's um, very helpful. And then surround yourself with people you know, like, and trust in those circles within the community and learn from them. You'd be surprised at how many people, especially artists, who would be willing to help you and pour into you if you simply take a risk on you, right? When people see that you're trying and you want to, pursue something, especially in the arts, um, such as Springboard for the Arts here in the Twin Cities. They're an organization that help artists. Um, that's just one of many. And as I mentioned, the Minnesota State Arts Board, they are very supportive in terms of helping artists financially with grants and supporting them to produce their art.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more about some of the projects you've been involved in and the people you've played?
Oh yeah, let's see. Well, I know one that comes to mind that's very near and dear to my heart. I had an opportunity to play Earlene in the film Turnip Seed, that is based on a true story on the life of John Turnipseed, who's no longer with us today. But I remember going to that audition and just thinking to myself, oh, it would be so lovely to get this role. And I got the role. And so I had an opportunity to portray Earlene in the film Turnip Seed. And I had an opportunity to go to her home and meet her. And so it's not often that I get to meet the person who I'm portraying.
Mhm.
And that moment really changed my life. And so, if anyone wants to go and see Turnip Seed, the short film version, it's on YouTube.
So, can you tell the listeners some places they can find you and where they can find some of your work?
Yes, I will be performing next Saturday at a Sister Spokesman event. The topic will be on domestic violence, and I'll have an opportunity to perform some of my spoken word poetry. Also in March, as I mentioned before, I'll be going to LA to perform for the Los Angeles Women's Theater Festival. I'll be performing my one woman show, Thrive. But in addition to that, if there's some organization who is interested in having me to come to perform some of my one woman show as it relates to breast cancer, I'd be happy to do that. I did have an opportunity to perform my show for M Health Fairview for their employees. And so I am available for that. But I'm also available for keynote speaking. As I mentioned, I speak on the topic of resilience, and you're welcome to reach out. My website is michelleperdue.speaks.com, and you can reach me by phone at 612 237 0652.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for being here today and sharing all that you've shared. I know that um, some of the things you touched on will be an inspiration to up and coming creatives in our area. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for watching. This is On the Radar, a new series that features Minnesota creatives at the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder. Please feel free to keep up with us as we continue on this new path and highlighting some of our community members.